Truby's Truth: How Murdoch Made Dan Wootton into a Monster. This exclusive from Byline Times, guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, guys, wherever you are in the world. This is Regan Elite here with another exclusive article from Byline Times, guys. Truby's, am I saying that wrong? I'm probably saying it wrong. Truby's Truth: How Murdoch Made Dan Wootton into a Monster. All Alex Truby wanted to find was the washing powder. Instead, he said he found the keys to a scandal now rocking the British media. Rocking so much that they don't dare talk about it. Obviously, if you guys aren't aware, I've covered the Dan Wootton scandal in a live stream, and I've also covered some of the articles. There is one more I need to cover, which I may do at some point as well. Alex Truby is the former partner of GB News' biggest ratings puller, Dan Wootton, the New Zealand journalist who has made a career out of invading private lives and passing public judgment for big bucks. From Prince Harry to Meghan Markle to Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, from Philip Schofield to pop star Duncan James and the late tragic Caroline Flack, Wootton was Rupert Murdoch's celebrity attack dog for more than a decade. So when, instead of cleaning his clothes one fateful day in 2012, Mr. Truby happened, he said upon Wootton's own dirty laundry, he decided simply he would not let him take the easy path of turning a blind eye, as many others have done since. In his first ever interview, Mr. Truby, gently spoken and determined with a pronounced sense of fair play, relates the events that led to Byline Times' special free investigation after being published last month. This newspaper reports have exposed Wootton as a serial sexual catfisher, blackmailer and prolific workplace bully, all of which the presenter denies. Byline Times has asked his representatives on numerous occasions to confirm or deny whether Dan Wootton is or is connected to Martin Brangan, but have received no response. Again, at the time of this recording, there has not been a response. But Alex Truby, it all began behind the big double doors of a laundry cupboard in Dan Wootton's former one-bedroom flat in Lemon Street in London, sought after E1 postcode. A cat-sitting discovery. I was cat-sitting for Dan while he was on holiday in New Zealand, Mr. Truby explains. One day I was doing some laundry and I was looking for the Dow symbol for the washing up powder, and I put my hand down the slide of the washing machine and there was a holdall rammed down there. Intrigued and suspicious, Mr. Truby said he pulled the back nylon and found the bag zipped and secured. I could tell it had stuff in it, he said. It wasn't just an unused sports bag or something, and my immediate reaction was that he was hiding something. So I pulled it out completely and found there was a little travel padlock where there were holes in the zips out. And so I thought, okay, this is weird. And because it was a flexible bag, I crumbled it to get the zip open wide enough to get my hands fully inside and started pulling stuff out. Among other personal items, Mr. Truby said he found a computer storage drives. There was 2 external hard drives, he said. I was very interested in those. I plugged one in and there was one file I was drawn to because I recognised the name as someone who was a friend of Dan's. I started to dig into this one folder and there was a video and a text file. Which I opened first was a transcript of an MSN Messenger conversation between 2 people. One was Martin Brangan, whose name I've never heard of before, and the other was the boyfriend of a person whose name was on the file. The transcript was between the boyfriend and Martin Brangan. Brangan was introducing himself as someone who was interested in making some sexual content. The transcript was essentially persuading the boyfriend to make the video without the consent of the partner if necessary. He adds the video file is exactly what I expected based on the transcripts. It was a wide shot of a bed from a camera put up high in the order. I immediately thought for it not to be seen. It was of 2 people having sex, and I took from video that Wootton's target had no knowledge of consent of that being made at all. At the time, Mr. Truby had been in a relationship with Wootton on and off for about 3 years. He said he was stunned by the discovery. I had always known Dan was obsessive about this person and never found it healthy, Mr. Truby told Byline Times. My immediate gut reaction was that Martin Brangan did not exist and it did not make sense. How could it have come into Dan's possession? And I knew that Dan was already obsessive about the target. I knew Dan was bragging and that he had manipulated into making the video. I felt sick to my stomach. Dan was my boyfriend. I was horrified. And when Dan came back to UK, I confronted him about it, and he didn't even try to deny it. I said to him, Martin Brangan Douglas exists, it's you. And he fell on his knees and he said, I'm sorry, I really effed up, I can't help it. It was him, he did it. From that day, I must have known 100% that Martin Brangan does not exist. He's just a name in an MSN account and email that Dan's been using to fix stuff for himself. The revelation marked the beginning of the end of a relationship that limped on for another year but never recovered from what Mr. Truby regrets as a terrible betrayal, both of those in the film and himself. I stayed with him because Dan emotionally blackmailed me all the time, he explains. Whenever I tried to leave, he said that I was deserting him at a time of crisis. He controlled me, he watched me and monitored me, he caught me accessing my emails and snooped on my social media. I feared him. It enabled the worst parts of him and amplified them. It wasn't always this way. When Alex Truby first met Wootton 3 years his junior as a fresh-faced 23-year-old in London, they quickly became friends. Wootton was still a journalist from Greenhorn, freshly arrived from New Zealand, and worked on the television industry magazine broadcast. Mr. Truby was still embarking on his own career. Everything was possible for them and they became close friends. But after a couple of years of knowing each other platonically, and Truby's relationship with the man he described at that time the love of my life ran into trouble, and his woman began to pressure him for more. I thought Dan was my best mate, he said, but he put me under immediate pressure to move things forward with him. I was asked for time and space, but I got ultimatums. I was put in a position, he said, well, either get together or I'm gone from your life completely. I was vulnerable. I just lost what I thought was the love of my life, and suddenly I was going to lose my best mate too. I didn't even have time to grieve the relationship. I just found myself tumbling into a relationship with Dan. Mr. Tumby said the change in Wootton once left the broadcast in 2007 for Rupert Murdoch's most feared tabloid, the now defunded News of the World, was profound. When I first met him, the biggest story he did was about those who picked up TV rights for this or that show, he said. This was very different to News of the World, but working for Murdoch, that environment, which was very ruthless, very cutthroat, very competitive for the biggest stories, changed him, enabled him for the worst parts of him, and amplified them. He was so driven by the pressure there that after a while it was everything. He became one of the biggest ever performers, getting all the splashes, front pages. He would get very angry if he ever felt screwed over on a story. He would make moves against colleagues to stop them from sharing bylines with him. If he ever had to share credit for a story, he wouldn't like it. He got mad about it. He was very, very, very focused on getting his name on the front page of the News of the World week after week, as many times as he possibly could to get it on there, and his bosses loved him for that and rewarded it. The toxicity of that paper, with everything knows about it now, has shut down. Probably did push him into an employee bad tactics. But I think by nature you're either capable of that kind of ruthlessness or not. Something that came together. There was pressure, and because of his ambitions, he was capable of it. Wootton's growing power at the then most read newspaper in the English-speaking world led to practices in which Mr. Truby now regards as potentially corrupt, and gave Wootton the financial powers to further his own interests. Dan had News of the World pay money into his bank account as a source, an absolute minimum of 10 times, he said. He told me for his actual sources I knew his boss who knew who I was, so I didn't question it too much. It was life-changing sums, always hundreds, not thousands, but still big lumps. I didn't really understand his world. I just thought it was a normal thing for reporters to do something in order to protect people's confidence. I would give the money to him, and I didn't know what happened to it after that. He had other friends who'd do it for him too. Wow, this is crazy. He goes from that into Rupert Murdoch's News of the World empire, and it completely changes the person. Completely. And it spelled down this spiral of power-hungry madness, according to this. It's absolutely crazy when you really think about it. You know, all these things about him that Byline has exposed. And again, I do have to state the words allegedly. I know I've seen people in the comments saying it's not allegations, but I still have to state it to protect myself, guys. But still, it's insane how money and power can easily change you manipulate you and make you and just turns you upside down, quite insane. You can be a really good person, but sometimes if you get in, you can get in bed with the wrong kind of people, and it can completely change you guys. Money and power can do that. Even the people with the kindest of hearts can turn that if they're not careful. And it takes a really strong will for people not to turn like that, because there are people out there who have seen themselves as good people and end up turning for the worst. Now, obviously, I'm not saying Dan was like that when before, because I honestly don't know him. But obviously, his ambitions and that turned for the worse as soon as he signed up to the News of the World and the Murdoch Empire. To try and paint me as abusive was absurd. When the News of the World shut down in disgrace in 2011 amid the phone hacking scandal, Wootton moved first to the Daily Mail as an editor-at-large before returning to Murdoch fold with the Sun titles. He eventually moved on from the Sun in 2021 after falling out with the editor Victoria Newton, and found himself at GB News, where Mr. Toynbee says turned his back on a long background of left-leaning personal politics. When I knew him, his politics were centre to centre left, he said. He was always so proud of one of the first breaks when interviewing Helen Clark when she was a Labour Prime Minister in New Zealand. Dan comes from a family of liberal people. His family are educators, and when I knew them, his politics were the same as theirs. He never got any liking from him, and he never would ever alienate himself from the hard right. I think he's faking it on GB News for the money, and because he's burnt on so many bridges in the mainstream media. Mr. Truby looks back with regret on his 4 years from 2009 to 2013 he spent with Wootton. I wish I had been braver, he told Byline Times. I wish I walked away sooner. I wish I hadn't given him so much of what should have been an amazing part of my life. However, I did, and I'm over it. I'm not here for some kind of personal revenge against Dan or for how I was mistreated. I'm not that kind of person. The powerful platform Wootton enjoys on GB News allows the presenter to launch a live on-air attack after the first part of the newspaper's investigation was published on Byline Times. Its journalists and others he alleged ironically are part of a hard left campaign to have the channel cancelled. Mr. Truby, who has already written about the Holdall revelations in a viral Twitter thread, was attacked by his former partners and abusive live on air, with Wootton making strong allegations that Alex Toby had previously threatened him with violence. Speaking to Byline Times, Mr. Truby candidly addresses Wootton's accusations. To try and paint me as abusive is absurd in itself, he says. It was an extension of his behaviour when we were together. I am in no abuser, and I am square at that, and I still share a dog with my most recent ex. I'm close friends with the two before that. I am in a very happy and supportive relationship now. On the alleged threat of violence, Mr. Truby says, on more than one occasion Dan targeted my friends online. And I know what I did about Martin Brangan. I was scared of what Dan would do. Something did happen not long after TV presenter Caroline Flack had died. I saw Dan crying, and what I thought were crocodile tears about Caroline. It galled me, so I tweeted briefly about the Holdall's discovery. I deleted the post after about 8 hours. I had a call from a mutual contact who put pressure on me on Dan's behalf. Later, Dan's lawyers started following me on social media, and I felt intentionally to silence me with legal threats. At the exact time, Dan went after someone very close to me. It felt predatory and intentional. I didn't see any choice but to act, and yes, I messaged him and I said yes, and I told him to stay the F away from my friends. In the heat of the moment, I used strong words, but just words. I'm not a violent person. Mr. Truby is still bruised by Wootton's on-air verbal assault. The moment I saw it, I felt sick, he said. It was scary. I knew he was going to hit back at me for speaking out. That's in character, but the man I know. But to try and call me an abuser live on TV, when I could find 100 character references to the contrary, that I didn't see coming. And I still can't believe his bosses let it happen. It's deranged. Yet, despite the deep personal abuse, a national newscaster allowed Wootton to bring down his former partner, Alex Truby is remaining calm and committed to his truth. I'm hoping the story goes somewhere, he says. I'm hoping the right people look at what's gone on and people learn from the truth. And that's it. Truby's truth, guys. I feel for him, you know, in a way. What are my thoughts? I just feel like, as big and as hard as Byline Times are pushing it, as of right now, at the time of this recording, I just feel like as big and as hard as Byline Times are pushing this, unless the rest of the mainstream media talk about this, which they're not, I just feel this is going to get shoved under the bed. I really do. And obviously I don't want it to, which is why I've done a live stream to try and push the narrative. But I just feel it's not getting enough spotlight whatsoever, in my opinion, guys. Byline Times is not big enough. Like, it can't just. It's not enough. We need more. Needs more coverage. This story needs more coverage, guys. Yes, it's great that that people are tweeting about it and talking about it on social media and all that kind of stuff, and YouTubers like myself are covering it, but it's not enough. It's not enough to get people talking about it. Nowhere near enough. It needs to be really blown up. People need to, people on the streets, who need to know about what Dan is doing, what Dan is what these allegations are, and people need to be made aware. And the man needs to be taken off freaking national television. Like, he needs to be taken off national television because of this, and he hasn't. And it's disgusting, like, prove they are wrong, but GB News are still rolling on as normal. And my fear is that the longer it is, the longer that things are staying as they are, the more they're likely they're going to get away with it. And that is my fear, my deepest fear, because there needs to be some kind of accountability for this, guys. But what do you guys think of Truby's truth? Let me know down in the comments below. Like, share and subscribe as always. Thank you very much for watching it along with me. If you can, guys, please support Byline Times. I will put a link to their support in the description, guys. Let's support them as best we can. Like, share and subscribe everything that they do, guys, because they need all the help they can get for the work that they do. Take care, and I'll catch you all very, very soon.